All right, so thank you all so much for joining for our August monthly meeting. Super excited to have y'all here. I know that more folks are coming in. Do you have a next slide? Awesome. So just a quick overview of our meeting agenda. We'll just be going over an introduction to what the Democratic Progressive Caucus is, what we've been up to across the state, ways to get involved, and of course, having our guest speaker, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, hop on to just kind of discuss how he ran for New York City mayor, how he first got involved in progressive politics, and more. And then we'll be just closing out the meeting as well, and also just really emphasizing the importance of getting involved right now at this moment. Next slide. All right. So the Progressive Caucus is a chartered caucus of the Florida Democratic Party that seeks to develop and promote leftist and progressive values, and of course, to strengthen the relationship between the progressive community and the Florida Democratic Party. The main things that we really do fight for and strive for is promoting, of course, progressive policies, promoting progressive candidates, and also just getting the work done that matters. Next slide. So your 2025, 2027 statewide officers and your board. I am, of course, the proud president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. Angel Montalvo, who is here on this call, is the vice president. Melody Kelly from Pasco County serves as secretary, and Mike Bonacolta serves as treasurer. Mike is actually also the immediate past president of the statewide caucus, so I'm super excited to continue to have his institutional knowledge on the board. Our board members are Dakin Weekly, Nadia Ahmad, Wazel Doker, Julia Meadows, Hillary Keys, Jim Langford, who's also here, and Linda Taylor. So super excited to have a board full of people from all over the state of Florida that really do have a lot of history with the Progressive Caucus right now in this moment. All right, so we do have committees. We have a few committees that don't have chairs that are listed on this slide. If you want to get involved in a committee, please scan that QR code right there. We'll also just be dropping it in the chat shortly. But our Budget and Finance Committee Chair is Nina Tatlock. Our Campaigns Committee Chair is Mike Bonacolta. Membership is Angel Montalvo, and Legislative is Harry Falbo, who's also on the call today. We're setting up our communications, development slash fundraising, and our bylaws and procedures committees still. So if you have an interest in getting involved in any of those committees, now is definitely the perfect time to really do that. But yeah, we're super excited to kind of get those committees launched. So we do have quite a few chapters all across Florida. Lots of these chapters are very new. Our Marion County, Seminole County, Orange Osceola, Hillsborough chapters are all very, very new, actually. So we're super excited to see those chapters really start up within, the past few months or so. Polk and Miami-Dade have been doing a lot of amazing work for the past few years, and Sarasota, Charlotte kind of just got re-engaged with a new board. So we're super excited to kind of see these chapters flourish all throughout the state. And actually, the next few slides are kind of just detailing one major thing that has really happened in these great chapters. So, of course, what have we been up to? Of course, we've been building a lot of local chapters, like our Marion County Progressive Caucus. Those folks listed on that slide are folks who just got elected to board positions. Jeannie Duro was elected president. She's on this call. She's absolutely amazing. She worked on Josh Wheel's campaign for Congress in CD6. But she's been doing a lot of amazing progressive outreach and just organizing based off of that election. So just wanted to really shout them out because I know that they've been having really massive meetings despite being in what is considered a super Republican county. I know that she's been educating a lot of people on progressive policy. So super excited to see Jeannie on the call. So our Seminole County Progressive Caucus also just recently started with Zachary Rivera being elected president. Zach used to be with Men for Choice, which is a pro-choice advocacy organization. He also used to be a campaign manager on a local school board candidates campaign as well. So Zach is absolutely amazing. And you can follow their work at Seminole Progressives on Instagram because they've been doing a lot of really cool meetings about things like 287G agreements. So super excited to see their work. All right, to to continue the amazing news of local interest meetings leading to chapters, Orange and Osceola, which I know has a lot of folks on the call today, had their interest meeting not too long ago with Wes Hodge being elected interim chair. He's only going to be serving for a few months to help set up the chapter, and as you've seen on the slide, there's a lot of amazing people alongside him on the board. So I have full confidence that they'll be able to get things really started. You can follow them at oc.progressivecaucus on Instagram, but they also have a really cool website that one of their board members set up. So super excited to see them, do a full sprint of doing this work. All right, so our Polk Progressive Caucus, which is one of our most active chapters in the state, tabled at Polk Pride. I think Wazel still has to hop on the call shortly, but they've been doing amazing work in engaging the local progressive community. Every time I join their calls, they have so many folks on. So just super excited to see their work, especially right now in this moment in terms of just educating and talking to folks in the LGBT community. All right, so Hillsborough elected an amazing board, including Jen Vaughn, who's on this call. But yeah, they had a great interest meeting of about 30 folks. So super excited for them to restart their chapter. The Hillsborough chapter actually disbanded a little bit earlier this year, but they're back and running, folks. So there's definitely lots of ways to get involved on them. And Sarasota, Charlotte. This is the last interest meeting that I'll go over. I feel like a lot of these have just been interest meetings, but Andrea Doria Kale, who ran for Congress a few times, is on the call tonight, and she is the new chair of the chapter. So super excited to see her get all her work started. I know that they just got elected less than 7 days ago. And I know that she's been doing a full sprint of getting all her certification paperwork in. So just want to give them a quick shout. And Angel, if you actually want to kind of speak a little bit about how all the stuff Miami-Dade has been doing, I think that would be great. I know that y'all did a lot of amazing work on mobilizing folks against 287G agreements. So just want to see you take the floor.
Totally. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Angel Montalvo, or Angel. You can call me Angel. It's cool. I live in Miami, Florida. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I'm currently serving as the president of the Miami chapter as well as the vice president of state, like Matt said. We've been doing a lot of focusing on getting our affairs in order with recertification coming up. There's a lot of documents that need to be filled in, so our board has been working on that. We just had our general body meeting where we voted on our bylaws to make sure that that's in order. We recently invested in this piece of technology that I'm very excited about and I'm playing with right now. It's called Solidarity Tech, where it's actually the same stuff that Zoran Mamdani's campaign used and a bunch of labor organizations are using. So one of the things that we're focusing on Miami, having been involved with the party for like over 5 years at this point, is building an infrastructure for progressives like us to be able to feel like when they're running for office, they're not just treading water. I'm excited to have Brad here. I know he's one of the founders of a progressive caucus up in New York. And, really, excited to be working with Matt to see if we can really get our chapters up and running and doing relational issues-based organizing. Like Zoran Mamdani's campaign was so effective at not just messaging, but actually doing a lot of grassroots organizing. I think the the time right now. The iron is hot. It's time to strike. I think that we are really in the need to have new leadership at the Florida Democratic Party, and I'm really excited to be part here in Miami of bringing that fight. As the chair of the membership committee, I look forward to getting more acquainted with each and every one of you, especially looking forward to meeting the new boards of the different chapters that are out there. If you have any questions, with my limited experience, I'm happy to share any knowledge. And I would love for anybody, if you wanted to visit, come down to Miami, reach out to me. And also looking forward to building more coalitions, see how we can do issues-based campaigns at the state level as a coalition organization with all of our new beautiful chapters and our current former chapters. So yeah, thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Angel, for all the work that you've been doing, especially against 287G agreements. So we all know what has been happening in the state of Florida has been really disappointing with ICE agreements in our counties and municipalities, ratifying these horrible agreements that definitely do hurt our community. So just want to give a big shout out to Miami-Dade because I know that you seriously helped mobilize a lot of people against these ICE agreements. So just want to give y'all a big, big shout out.
Appreciate that, Matt.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
wh- yeah, that's why it's so important for us to elect people who are actually going to represent our communities in Miami
Yeah,
and across the state.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so during the state senate and state house special elections in Brevard County, I was so excited to launch a canvas for Vance Aaron's and Juan Hinojosa to get out the vote. Vance actually came super, super close. Vance previously ran against Randy Fine, and she ran in the special election to replace him in the state senate, and she came super, super close without a lot of institutional support. So I think that these special elections for both state senate and state house do showcase that Florida seriously is still worth fighting for. That our elections are actually still pretty close. We're just unfortunately a very unorganized state. So I think that we do have a lot of future potential pickups, and I think that it's been really cool to see how many folks in Brevard County have become really interested in the Progressive Caucus as a result of these two special elections, and how we did seriously try to get Vance and Juan over the line. So just want to highlight that, and I'm super appreciative of the Brevard Dems and Vance and Juan for running in that election. We also co-sponsored a protest of the Republican Party of Florida's Freedom Forum. A big shout out to our Orange and Osceola folks for showing up to protest against how disgusting this Freedom Forum was. I actually got kicked out during Ron DeSantis's speech, which was really an interesting thing. Got completely physically assaulted by somebody in it. But I really want to highlight how horrible some of the things that were said in this Freedom Forum were. We saw folks make jokes about just straight up racism. I remember seeing a YouTuber named Benny Johnson, who some of you may know, unfortunately, say some really disgusting remarks on a panel with Byron Donalds. We saw Blaze Agnolia make tons of jokes about things like Doge and pronouns, for example. So it's just absolutely disgusting. I think it really does showcase embodiment of what the Florida Republican Party is right now, and how that we definitely do need to continue our organizing to fight back against this just absolute nightmare, because we cannot take 4 more years of Republicans being in control of the governorship of the state Senate and state House here in Florida, because they somehow still can pass even worse policy. So just want to highlight how important I think organizing against the Republicans in this exact type of manner is right now in this moment. All right, so we're just going to close out with some ways to get involved before moving on to our amazing guest speaker. So you can join our Discord. I'll be dropping that in the chat shortly. but is the main way to get involved. We've been doing kind of a test run of our statewide Discord for the past few weeks or so. But this is a great way to get involved. It's how we run our committees, but it's also just a good connection point between you and the other folks in your chapter as members, for example. So definitely greatly recommend joining the Discord. I'll put that in the chat soon. Here's also our committee sign up form. Once again, we do definitely need help on our committees as we continue to get them set up. So please scan the QR code, get involved. Please, please, please. We definitely need help on communications, development, slash fundraising, and bylaws still. So definitely feel free to sign up for all of those. Though any thing that interests you, for example, definitely feel free to also put. All right, so we'll just be moving on to our amazing guest speaker, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who's on the call. Hey, Brad.
Hey Matthew, great to be on with you guys.
Yeah, of course. How are you?
I'm doing great. Really honored to be invited to join you. Was excited to learn a little about what you guys are doing. So important to be organizing progressives and doing it, within the Democratic Party. There's a lot of different ways of doing this around the country, and I'm excited to talk about what we're doing here. Some of you might just have seen that the Democratic Farmer Labor Party of Minnesota endorsed a progressive candidate for mayor. So there's ways of doing it. I'm sure that they feel like you're, kind of not the majority caucus yet of the Democratic Party, but there's a lot of ways of organizing. And anyway, I'm delighted to get to talk with you guys.
Yeah, of course. And Seattle, for folks to know, just actually didn't exactly elect because it is a top two primary election. But the number one finisher of their mayoral election last night was actually a progressive over an incumbent Democrat as well. So I think there is a lot of, shifting happening across the country. But we'll be asking some questions first that are pre-selected and then opening up to audience questions if time allows. So yeah, Brad, how did you first get politically engaged?
Thank you. Well, I think it looks like a lot of you got engaged as a young person. For me, it was, a number of ways, but probably the most significant early one was actually through my synagogue youth group. I grew up in the Midwest in St. Louis and was active in the Reform Jewish youth movement there. And, those organizations also have like a social action vice president. And that was what I did first at my synagogue level, and then at the regional level, and then at the national level. And that was a balance of like anti-hunger campaigns, fighting bad policies at the city, state, federal level, on poverty and economic justice issues. I'm, a little older than a bunch of you guys, so that was a long time ago, and it was the time when Jews in the Soviet Union were trying to get the opportunity to leave. And so there was some organizing we were doing both on behalf of Soviet Jewry to be allowed out of the Soviet Union, and then a lot of organizing across the country on economic justice and anti-poverty issues. And, though we were just in high school, we'd have the opportunity to sit down with elected officials and talk about those issues. And yeah, that was when I first got the bug a little bit. It still took me a long time to run for office. I went from there to, to college and then to a career in affordable housing and community development work. So organizing tenants, building affordable housing, helping bring back neighborhoods. And of course, that work is adjacent to politics. But I'll be honest, at that time, I sort of saw more the gross side of politics. I'd be like trying to make an affordable housing project happen. And one time I genuinely basically got bribed by a Democratic elected official who said, if you, agree to, give the job to this contractor, then the local councilman will make sure you get the award. So like a lot of people, even though I cared a lot about the issues, felt pretty turned off by electoral politics. And in many ways, we can talk about this a little more, but it was the possibility of organizing together with other people toward progressive goals that got me, open again to thinking about electoral politics.
Awesome. All right, so I know that you helped co-found the New York City Council Progressive Caucus. So can you kind of touch up on how that really got founded and how important that was in moving the needle on the city council?
Sure. And maybe I'll take one step back because even before I got elected to office and we worked together to form the Progressive Caucus, I ran as a Democrat, but also with the support of the Working Families Party. And the Working Families Party is a third party, but a third party that works closely with Democrats. In New York State, we have something called fusion, which doesn't exist a lot of other places around the country. And so that means you can form a non-spoiler third party and your votes in the general election add up. And so progressive Democrats, by and large, are involved in the Working Families Party here in New York. And you run in the Democratic primary. You also, may seek to get the Working Families Party endorsement. And in the general election, you can be on both lines and votes add up. And so there's Republicans often run on the conservative line and progressive Democrats run on the Working Families Party line. And what that does is just in some ways a lot like what you guys are doing. You're building, you're a Democratic elected official. I've been registered all my life as a Democrat. But you're looking to build power together with people that share these goals we have of affordable housing and universal health care and a more equal city and society. And the Working Families Party, there were term limits that had been adopted a few years earlier. So in 2009, when decided to run for city council, it was a year when a lot of city council members were termed out. And so there were a number of opportunities to run for open seats. And progressives sort of teamed up together. And the Working Families Party supported supported me, Jumani Williams, who's now the public advocate here in New York City, Letitia James, Tish James, New York State Attorney General, and some others as well. And then when we got elected, I think at the time there were maybe about 10 of us out of 51 city council members who had been elected with Working Families Party support. And we decided we wanted to keep working together on the inside then of the city council. It was great that we have been supported by WFP, which continues as a outside force, but it was important for us to be able to work together internally. And so that's why we formed the New York City Council Progressive Caucus. That was a little scary, I'll be honest, because we had to tell the Democratic speaker of the city council that we were doing this, and we knew that she was not going to be excited about it. Now, we had some good allies. We had some labor unions that had supported her, but also were on board with what we were doing. So, we were able to do it in a way, which I'm not saying she loved it, but at least we had some significant allies. And that caucus, that first term, so Mike Bloomberg, Republican, was the mayor. You had a mainstream Democratic speaker, and we were pushing legislation that we knew was popular, but and this was I can get to DSA in a minute, but this was really before there was a significant, really any DSA electoral presence, because this was in say 2009, 2010, long before Bernie's 2016 run. But we were pushing for paid sick days for all workers in New York. That was the first big campaign of that effort. And that had like 80% approval rate in New York. I mean, everyone agrees that, workers should be able to take a few paid days off when they're sick so they don't get their colleagues sick. Um, but we couldn't get it to the floor. And we had to do a petition to discharge to get that, so that was like the first bold thing that our Progressive Caucus did. And it was a good issue because we knew that if it got to the floor, the vast majority of Democrats would, including moderate Democrats, would feel pressure to vote for it. And so we did that. We did a living wage bill. We confronted discriminatory stop and frisk policing in New York City. So we had three big issues around which we got legislation pushed to the floor. Ultimately, on the floor, it got both moderate and progressive Democrats voted for it. We had to override mayoral vetoes, and that helped build a lot of the oomph for future progressive political wins in the years since then.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that you touch up a lot on the next question I was going to have. And I think it does go into that DSA WFP discussion as well. But how did you really effectively build coalition in this year's mayoral election? You know, as an elected that has been in office for a few years, how do you think you best, you know, continued your relationship with a lot of these grassroots organizations
Yeah,
effectively?
maybe I'll just kind of carry forward a minute from, 2010 or 13 when we formed that progressive caucus, over the years since then, because the spirit of what you guys are doing and what we've been doing here is playing politics as a team sport inspired by the goals that we share. Now, that's not so crazy. Like in the normal world, that's what people do all the time is try to form good teams motivated by shared goals. But our politics don't encourage that, right? Our politics are very individual sport organized in the US. That's what First Past the Post does. If you're going to be a person, it's your name on the ballot. You got to knock all those doors, make all those fundraising calls, and say me, all those times. I've probably done it 100,000 times. I'm not kidding. And it doesn't attract healthy people and it doesn't reinforce healthy habits. You get to think of it like an individual sport instead of a team sport. But what we've been trying to do, what Working Families Party encourages, what the Progressive Caucus encourages, what you guys are encouraging, is trying to do it as a team sport. I mean, solidarity is another word for that. But at one level, it's so obvious to say these goals we have that everybody would have healthcare and housing they could afford and workplace protections, and government would be a vehicle for doing those things together. We want to form a team as much as we can and fight together for that. And of course, that is what the Democratic Party should be, and at its best, sometimes is, but in my experience, just unfortunately too rarely. And you can even see this. I think this is true at the local, at the state, and at the national level. The party tends to be the vehicle of the chief executive of the body that has it. The new president or the new governor or the new county executive appoints the chair, and it just becomes their vehicle instead of a vehicle for recruiting new candidates and making strategy together and building with outside allies and running campaigns that win and then inspire. And that's what we're trying to do. So that's what I've been doing in different forms across all those years. And that means you look for allies both to your left and to the center. And, so as DSA, got energy after the Bernie campaign, after 2016 and formed here and, took an electoral presence, we look to work with them on overlap campaigns like a public power campaign in New York or exciting electoral campaigns like for my friend Tiffany Caban when she ran to be Queens County District Attorney and she didn't quite win that one, but then she ran for city council. And of course, if you volunteered on the DA campaign, you were excited about the city council campaign. And so together, we've just built a lot of relationships. And sometimes there's really good partnerships with more mainstream labor unions who agree that they want more worker protection. So on a lot of the bills I passed in the city council, we were able to get support of some of the larger unions. And of course, sometimes with mainstream, more moderate Democratic elected officials who also, you can often build relationships with. So that's just what I had been doing in different ways over all those years. That's how I won my race for Comptroller, which is like our city's chief financial officer 4 years ago. I had the support of Working Families Party and AOC, and I also got the endorsement of the New York Times and had a lot of more mainstream Democrats who I'd gotten to know and work with and thought I would be a good controller and weren't alienated from working with me. And that's just the inclination I bring. And I'll be honest, that is the race for mayor that I was running. I was trying to rebuild that coalition of, progressive Working Families Party types, and more kind of pragmatic, just make the government run well Democrats who care about public education and, want the garbage picked up and believe in, equality, but are a little less kind of ideological, but, had seen me as someone to kind of get the job done. And that was the coalition I was looking to build. I'll be honest, what I thought was that those sort of DSA crew and further left folks would be excited by Zoran Mamdani's campaign and would rank me second. And, I didn't imagine there being quite as many of them as there were. And that would be my winning ranked choice coalition because we have ranked choice voting. Now, we don't have it by accident. I sponsored the bill that got on the ballot eventually as a referendum to bring ranked choice voting to New York City, believing that it's one more way that you could do politics better as a team sport, that it creates incentives for partnership. So in this race, as it was clear that at first we thought it would be Eric Adams, but as he kind of self-destructed, Andrew Cuomo was going to be kind of carrying that, centrist Democrat or, right-wing Democrat lane. A bunch of us were interested in running as more progressive Democrats. So ultimately, there were four of us who were endorsed by the Working Families Party: myself, Zoran Mamdani, the City Council Speaker Adrian Adams, and Zeldor Myrie, state senator. All good people. Obviously, we're each making our case, but all folks who I've worked with in different ways because we have ranked choice voting, because we all cared about and, have been supported at some point by the Working Families Party. They put a slate together that the four of us were on. And of course, we were each gunning to be the first choice candidate of that slate. And that was certainly what, I entered the race hoping. Um, as it became clear to me down the stretch, that the polling made clear that Zoran was the candidate who had the best chance to beat Andrew Cuomo. Ranked choice voting meant that I then have this opportunity to cross endorse him. So a couple weeks out from the election, that's what we each did. We each encouraged our voters, rank me first, but rank the others second. Working Families Party continued to say, put all four of these people on your ballot. They ranked Zoran first, me second, and then Adrian and Zelnor. And that made it a lot easier. I think the challenge of team sport politics, easier when you have an outside entity like Working Families Party, easier when you have ranked choice voting. But it's possible to do that regardless of those things. The more important idea, I think, is not the technical issues. The more important idea is politics is done best as a team sport. Build your team together around shared goals and ideas. Yeah, it's electoral politics. So sometimes people will stand against each other and somebody wins and somebody loses. But if you're actually committed to those broader goals, then even the loser picks up and says, okay, maybe this wasn't my time. I'll get it next time, and suits up to go build those goals together.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think to step back a little bit to just generally like running for office, as I think many people in this call know, running for office is super stressful. It is super mentally taxing and physically taxing at times. So I know that we have some folks on the call who are younger, progressive folks that are running for office, especially on the local level. What's some advice that you'd give them about how to actually, balance that health with actually running for office?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, and this is like, I feel like it might be contradictory advice given some of what I've just said about like the team sport nature, because you do have to be willing to put yourself out there. Like, we need leaders, and it's not like teams have leaders. It's not a choice between an individual sport where it's only about you and something where it's just only about the group and people's leadership is not needed. People's leadership is needed. So I would encourage people. There's a lot of ways to contribute, and some people care passionately about the issues and are brilliant contributors to politics and just aren't extroverted and don't want to go out and put themselves out there. And this, of course, is a million ways those folks can contribute as well, in policy research, in organizing, in fundraising, in institutional and support. But we do need people who, in the context of these teams, want to get out there. And there's no better way than to do it on somebody else's campaign first. You volunteer for a campaign and you go knock doors for them. And if you find you like talking to people about that other candidate, whoever it is, um, that's a great way to get started, and you just test out. Do I like talking to people and knocking doors and talking about the issues and getting in conversations with my neighbors about the things that matter to them? And boy, if the answer is yes, if you do like that, if you feel good at it and you feel passion, then there are lots of organizations that can help you kind of explore it a little more. Groups like Run for Something, or there's different trainings that folks do that can give you a little taste of like, is this for me? And then there's great ways to go test that out because there's all kinds of things to run for. You guys have water and sewer boards, and there's leadership posts in the organization that you have, and there's lots of ways to sort of test that out. And then, um, what I find is that the support and courage to do it. When I was trying to decide to run for city council the first time, I just went and talked to lots of the people in my life who I had worked with on affordable housing and around my kids' school and other issues. And of course, most of those people, if you go talk to them, like some of those people will say, "What, are you crazy?" But a lot of those people will say, "That's a great idea. We need you there. What can I do to help? Can I write a check? Can I talk to, some other people?" And then you find yourself pretty far along. And I would just say try to keep both of those things, like both the idea that your leadership is important and you got to be disciplined and you're going to have to ask everyone you know for money and you're going to have to be uncomfortable and how often, it is, if you're like a decent human being, it's awkward to go say me on every door knock, on every phone call over and over again. It's worth doing in the context of this team effort and surrounding yourself with people in an organization, hopefully, but in your life as well, who understand what your values are and why you're doing it and help you kind of stay in that place. I guess I'll just say in this regard, when I had to make the cross endorsement decision, it wasn't an easy one, right? I like started this race with the idea that I would be the first ranked choice and the candidate who would have the best shot to win. So doing the cross endorsement felt like a kind of conceding. It was not an easy decision to make. And what I found around me were all these people who had had my back, who had supported me, who had thrown house parties, who cared about my leadership, who wanted to protect me, and who helped me remember why I was in it and like what the purpose was and helped me understand this was a moment for saying, what does our team need to do to have the best chance to win? And if you can keep both those things, kind of in place, you'll be able to manage even when you'll have some great nights and you'll have some hard nights and you'll always have really good people around you helping you think about what's next.
Yeah. Might I just add really quick before we get to audience questions? You are probably the best person in the country to ask that question to, considering you probably ran for the most stressful election and the most stressful position to have in the United States, besides maybe president. So if folks want to raise their hands to just ask some quick audience questions, I am more than happy for folks to do that. Angel?
Hey, thank you so much for your insights. It was really informative and helpful. I've been reading a lot about the labor history in Chicago in the late 1800s, and it's been like, man, believe in electoral work, and I understand why people are really frustrated to the point of like vigilante justice. Like I'm not about that. I believe that through cooperation and organizing, we can get to people. Florida, Miami. I can speak for Miami specifically, but throughout Florida, I'm sure it's the same. We're in a position where we're so disorganized and people are so turned off from the Democratic Party. It's kind of like this weird place where progressives, understandably, are frustrated with the party, and so I've been finding it kind of difficult to figure out how to, as like a person from the movement, trying to navigate this space for years now. So I wanted to get your insights. That's kind of where I'm coming from, but I wanted to get your insights on what you see the future of like the national progressive movement. Like I've talked to Matt about like, do we need some kind of national progressive caucus council? Like all of the progressive caucuses throughout the country send delegates and meet independently. Like, is that happening? Because I don't know. I know what's going on in Florida a little bit, but if not, can we make that happen? Because we need to have for people like in Miami and Florida who we don't have as much history. Miami's like 100 years old, if that. If we don't have the organizing history, they're like mopping the floor with us. And it like I'm using, for example, Solidarity Tech that Mamdani's campaign is using, and it's so helpful to have these resources. And I think that it would be really helpful to feel less isolated and hopeless here in Florida. So yeah, just want to get.
Yeah. So I'll say a couple of things. I mean, those are real problems, and I'll give you some thoughts on them. But they're the problems we're facing, and I don't have, I don't think there's easy answers. I'll say, one, I've been saying this a lot recently, but I don't think the most important line right now in the Democratic Party is actually between progressives and moderates. I think it's between fighters and folders. Like people are pissed off. And they don't see Democrats fighting hard enough against Trump or for working class families. But they're inspired when they see people who do that. And so finding folks who will pick tough fights and get out there and fight them, it matters. And it does inspire people. And that happens in different places and different times. I'm proud of the cross endorsement with Zoran, which showed a kind of solidarity politics, but it was definitely the moment my campaign got the most attention was when ICE agents arrested me. And I did not mean that was not a planned act of civil disobedience. I was just doing accompaniment of asylum seekers. And, but I was prepared for what might come. And when I was just able to show up in that way, that was when a lot of people said, hey, there's something here we want to be a part of. So I think that can happen in a lot of different places and times. Unions are a good example. Like there are some unions at some moments who, for a range of reasons, their members get a little more political. And so instead of just of doing the main thing unions do, like bargaining for their contract, can just show some extra fight in the way that, Starbucks workers are at the moment. Or I don't know, up here, it happens that right now at the moment, the UAW is the union with the real progressive fighting energy. And so there's a lot happening there. And that wasn't true in the UAW here 5 years ago. There's like so, and in terms of how to network it, um, I think like people have different levels of sort of appetite for electoral politics. So, DSA is a good example. There's a period of time when people in DSA were not interested in electoral politics. And now there's some people in DSA who are not, and some people in DSA who are. And then there's people like us, progressive Democrats, who are willing to work with those folks. Some of you guys might be DSA members, some of you might not be, but you see partnership opportunities. Um, and I think it's good to sort of find the places you're excited about. So, if you're a union member and there is a caucus in your union that you can build with, like that's great. And then you do have a national organization because there's probably caucuses, if you're a teacher, like, the teachers union itself is not a left-wing institution, but it's a solid democratic institution. And in most places, it's got caucuses that are more progressive. And so that can be a great place for you to do organizing that's building broader power, but that is also a place for you to network with progressives. And then you can go to the national convention of your union, and you've got a national progressive network, even though you're, renegades within your union. One thing that I helped build as a city council member is a national organization called Local Progress. And that's the national network of progressive local elected officials. And like you might say that's pretty niche. How come like the state folks aren't in it? But it's like if you're a city council member or a county council member, it's a pretty particular set of issues. And what we found was when we created that, we had so many shared issues. And so now that's a network of almost 2,000 progressive local elected officials all around the country. It's got like 25 or 30 staff. We just had our national convening in Chicago. It's just great. There's something like that at the state level called State Innovation Exchange. Obviously at the national level, there's the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Um, if you got, soil and water conservation board members, welcome. School board members, welcome. Any local office is welcome. So go to localprogress.org. That's a great national network where you can meet other progressive local elected officials or state chapters in a bunch of states. And I don't know if there's Florida state organizing, but if you guys are interested in talking to the local progress staff, I know there's a lot of members in Florida, and so they might be willing to put some resources from the national organization in to help do some statewide Florida organizing or even regional. Sometimes there can be if it's, whatever, Miami or South Florida, or what would make the most sense. Um, and that's not as good as the question you're asking, Angel. Like, I guess I wish I saw a path to, and I mentioned the Working Families Party. Working Families Party is another national institution with state and local level infrastructure. And we just did the state convening, which was great. Zoran spoke, Tish James spoke, I spoke, Jumani spoke, a lot of energy across the state. But it just depends whether you're in a place where that's kind of an organizing institution that makes sense. And, I don't know, because we're kind of small D Democrats, it's hard to get us in one big organization together. But I found, whatever, if you do it over time, you just meet so many great people, you build good networks that show up for you or, create opportunities for connection, and organizing.
Awesome. Brad, do you have a few more minutes for a few more questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can go till late.
Wonderful. Awesome. Danielle?
Hi, my name is Danielle Bonilla. I was actually born in New York, and living in Florida, we have a lot of more heavy issues, right? It's not even about, oh, hey, can we be more progressive? It's like, hey, can we keep what little rights we have? Because this is really Trump and DeSantis have really built this as a building ground of like the conservative mecca. So we can't even think about like affordable housing because we're just trying to stay so in that, like, I know you did this a very great thing in New York, but Florida's starting from a completely different spot. So it's like, how do we even start when all we're trying to it takes all of our energy to survive?
Yeah. It's a first, I just want to honor that, like I really want to honor it. My whole, I mean, I am from St. Louis, my folks still live there. So like Missouri's a context that's even redder than Florida.
Mhm.
But my whole career and history and local progress has obviously got folks all around the country. So I talk to a lot of local elected officials who are the one Democrat, not just the one progressive
Yeah.
in their local council. But that doesn't mean I'm steeped in it or feel it. I mean, one, I will just say again what I said about the way that fights inspire, that righteous fights, that showing
Hmm.
courage inspires people.
Hmm.
And it doesn't, I mean, that's kind of wherever the Overton window is. So, like whatever the thing you're fighting to preserve, even if it's way less than you'd want, if it's jeopardized and you show up and fight for it, whether that's like just keeping there being from being one more rate increase on people's electricity bills or, whatever the context is, saving public schools from being totally eradicated by vouchers and privatization. I mean, you know what they are. You can generally tell. I mean, look, you want an issue most people agree with. Like the best progressive issues are the ones that, for whatever reason, the mainstream party is just less willing to fight for, but pretty much
Hmm.
everyone or a pretty
Hmm.
broad set of people really want. And when you get out there and fight for that, it can really be, it just inspires people. And those can be things that aren't even necessarily coded as
Hmm.
progressive or on the left side of the spectrum. Like Lena Khan's been doing great fighting for small businesses and independent pharmacies. And like, so, I don't know enough about each of your local contexts to know what the fights are. I just know like when you team up with folks and fight for things that matter and just show some courage, it has a ripple effect. It gets people excited. It brings people on board. You can see solidarity. It has that same energy, regardless of sort of where you'd put it on the spectrum. And in my experience, regardless of whether it's a massive victory or a smaller scale victory. So,
Hmm.
and I guess these are crappy times, and I mean, like that's just the case. Like we are fighting
Hmm.
defensive battles right now. We're in
Hmm.
backlash times. And I'd rather we had progress times, like but what you I don't know, when you're doing these kind of sort of team sport progressive politics well, it's not that you've won, whatever, like European style, inclusive
Mhm.
social democracy. It's that you got a team of people that care about each other and about your neighbors and their kids and, building something together. And
Mhm.
that energy in fighting, I don't, I think can be similar regardless of what the particular political context is.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for your courage in endorsing Mamdani. I think it's much braver to know when to know when to do the right thing. And I think that was really courageous. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Some. All right, Matthew, just for one more short question because I think time is almost up.
Matthew, do you mean Carol?
There was another Matthew,
Oh,
but I
okay.
think, yeah.
Hello, hi. I'm the other Matthew.
Okay.
Hello. Yes. I'd like to thank you first about working so hard and dealing with getting arrested and everything in regards to that and the New York campaign. I do want to ask, you've been now working so hard and trying to get like progressive things done at the local level. Like um through your attempt at the mayoral campaign and things like that. Do you believe, because I believe that we need more decentralized local progressive policies and doing and expanding welfare programs on the local and state level, and need to stop going after federal level, that the federal government has become too stagnant? And do you believe that we need to focus more on that and focus more on state level politics in general, and basically not expect the federal government to provide for us, be it universal health care or whatever, and try focusing on getting that on the state level?
I mean, I guess I would mostly say both and. I mean, I'm a local politics guy, so I love fighting for what cities can do. And cities can do some amazing things. I mean, I passed the first legislation in the country to guarantee a living wage for deliveristas and Uber drivers and stable schedules for fast food workers so they get 2 weeks notice of their schedules. And you can't fire a fast food worker in New York City without good cause. And we have stronger tenant protections. All things, honestly, that all Americans should have. But we're a long cry on any of those things from having all Americans having them. And yeah, doing them at the city, New York City level was great. Other cities followed on. In some cases, those things I mentioned, paid sick days, or we've got these great protections for freelancers, are available at statewide levels. So I think that work is valuable and important. Um, I mean, I guess I wouldn't write off national politics. There are a lot of things that ultimately really need to be done at the national level.
Yeah.
I'm for the New York Health Act, which would be a single payer program for New York State. But there's just so many reasons it would be better to do single, national health insurance. So I guess I think it's good if you're a person who is passionate about local work or state work to do that. Um, and I'm gonna still get involved in congressional and Senate and presidential campaigns because even if I can't get the candidate at those levels that I'm as excited about maybe as, New York City mayor, we still need to win at those levels to do a lot of what we care about.
I understand that. Yeah. I agree with that. I just think our at least on a local level, especially with considering the state we're in here in Florida, with how DeSantis has such accumulated such power, that the best thing is to provide more of these policies on the local level, and then if possible, basically just defang executive power. I personally believe that we need to defang executive power on both the state and federal level. I do not want just to put a Joe Biden into power that will then, and then we have to worry about a Trump style person coming up in 4 years. I don't want to work. I want the president to be a paper pusher again, focusing on just vetoing and, you know, approving laws, and that's it. Like, that's a paper pusher. I don't want the president to have the overt executive authority ruling by decree, like as he has been presented. And I believe that we need to just completely defang executive power rather than simply trying to capture it ourselves.
Definitely right. All right. Carol, if you have just a very quick question. So sorry. Oh, you're muted.
Danielle basically asked my question, but I just a quick comment. I'm a one-time New Yorker now living in Sarasota. My daughter is very jealous. She lives in Jackson Heights, and you have been her favorite. So, but I just wanted to mention that I've been an education activist here, and an organization led by young people, high school recent graduates, has cropped up around education, has gone statewide and even nationwide, and is creating a lot of excitement. And the reason in Florida, where most, like in our county commission, is totally right wing, totally Republican, almost every institution other than small cities, which often are Democratic but tend to be conservative. So the school board is such a battleground and such an open battleground. It's also nonpartisan. So it's been a very exciting type of experience. So I just want to
Yeah.
get your reaction and also
Plus-
let people know on this call that the Sea Alliance is what it's called, is a group to look at and to ally with.
Plus one to all of that. I sort of hinted at this before. I really think that public education is a critical place for all Democrats and progressive Democrats to focus. Like, that used to be an overwhelming winning issue for Democrats, and some combination of the pandemic and other things kind of got us back on our heels. But I mean, our public schools are obviously like foundational to democracy. The majority of people want them to succeed, Democrats and Republicans. Of course, there's a school choice and privatization movement, but lots of people want to need public schools. School boards are great places to kind of fight because they're locally funded. The state, can't, whatever, they can try to ban books and ban organizing, but they can't do everything because the money's coming from the localities. And yes, students are amazing organizers and we need more of it. Teachers are incredible, and it's great when they organize, and there's opportunities there. Local Progress, I mentioned, has a school board, caucus, so elected school board members are welcome in Local Progress. And yeah, like, that's one place that I think I believe in the coming years will be a really important and fruitful place for our organizing. Tenants too agreed with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brad. Thank you for being our guinea pig of these Progressive Caucus calls. You're our first guest speaker. So thank you so much for being on, continuing the fight in New York City, where we all have your back here in Florida. So
Thank you so much. Love what you guys are doing, and honored to be your inaugural guest. Keep it up, and someday I'll be down in Florida, I'm sure, and I'll reach out.
awesome. All
Have a
right.
great
Thank
night.
you, Brad.
Take care.
All right. And for folks as well, I'll be on the call just for a little bit longer to answer any questions that folks might have about the Progressive Caucus. I'll also be sending in the chat once again our committee application form, our Discord, and more. So if folks have any questions, definitely feel free to raise your hand. Danielle?
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about like kind of what this caucus is trying to do, especially in our current time, because I might be interested in on the communication side, but I'd like to learn more about like, hey, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? What is the path we have set forward as far as like getting progressive policies anywhere near Florida?
Yeah, of course. So I'll share part of my vision, of course, is to
Mm.
really promote actual education and really fighting in our communities around, progressive causes, say, opposing 2087G agreements. Lots of Floridians, unfortunately, have not gotten a lot of education about, what is going on in our state and our municipalities, because there has not been a lot of outlets to really ensure that Floridians are being taught, actual facts. Of course, we've seen entities like Florida's Voice crop up that have way more conservative leans. So I'll say on, communications, definitely amplifying, progressive messaging on policies
Yeah.
for both the county, municipal, and state level, but also really building power and unity with progressive organizations outside the party. So
Yeah.
amplifying,
Yeah.
their messaging, what they've been doing, etc. That's definitely a part of that major comms piece of what I, as president, really want to see happen with the state caucus. And I think that, we've been doing a lot more, programming on that front. But definitely want to continue that and continue that amplification that we've been setting out to do in the past few months.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to just not to like, suck up all your time. Maybe we could like schedule a one-on-one call
Yeah.
because and kind of figure out like, hey, what you're looking for, what you're hoping to do, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Cool.
All right, Angel.
Hey, I want to follow up on Danielle and this is a new board. This is a new year for us, even though like we're already past the summer. But right now I think we should be focusing as a group on having these kind of conversations, listening sessions. I think it's great to have had a speaker that's directly about so many things that we're facing. But the reality is that in Florida, we are dealing with a whole, other kind of reality than New York City, for example. And we all here, I'm sure, understand that the problem with our political system is money in politics. And so, as a progressive caucus, I think our role is to be developing the infrastructure to be able to recruit candidates, to be able to effectively run campaigns, and not just be able to win office, but to like build coalitions and legislate effectively. Like, I think what Brad was talking about really spoke to me because the reality is like, yeah, we have you're gonna get you're gonna get beat in Florida a lot. But showing up and having that resilience and actually providing an alternative to what the Florida Democratic Party is offering right now. Because the problem with the Florida Democratic Party primary is not whether or not NPAs are participating in our primary. The problem is that the Democratic Party has alienated our progressive base from leadership of the actual party and the focus of the policies. Like they're not advocating for progressive policies that will affect like affordability. It's not affordable to be in Florida. In Miami, I can speak personally, but it's the same across the state. And so I think focusing on having regular meetings where we get to now determine like what is the best way to get progressives elected into office, because I'm like Matt, it keeps bringing up the 287G agreements and it's a great point, but like in Miami, they don't care. They're never going to vote in favor of that. Florida legislature is never going to vote for Medicare for all Florida. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to happen right now. Like they don't listen to us because we don't have the political power. So I think that should be our focus. And the way to do that, in my opinion, is to organize locally. Like we have a finite amount of Democrats in each of our precincts, and we can use technology and vote builder to like pull these files and start organizing in our precincts, like doing listening campaigns. That's what Mamdani's campaign did. They went out, why did you vote for Trump? What would it take for you to vote for a Democrat? What would it take for you to vote at all? And then build issues-based campaigns on that, collect petitions, and then when it comes down to it, see if we can find a working class person to run for this position and be elected. We shouldn't have pedigree elected officials. It should be like working people in our government and in the party. Honestly, we need to recruit working people into the Florida Democratic Party and Democratic executive committees across the state of Florida, and say we're going to stop taking money from billionaires. We're going to stop funding genocide. We're going to stop doing all these things that are counter to what we need, and we're going to start funding education, universal healthcare, and so on and so forth. So I'm really grateful you asked that question, and I'm grateful for everybody for being here and contributing to this moment where we're addressing these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that is why I'm super, super appreciative of all the folks that are stepping up to build chapters in their area, because I think that really is how we effectively do build out that actual listening in our communities. So many folks do want to just talk to their neighbors and their community members the most about actual issues that do impact them rather than, a statewide face, for example. So I'm very appreciative of, all the folks that have dedicated time to actually build out their local organizing and neighborhood community building for the Progressive Caucus at this moment. But I want to flag as well, one of the great things about the Discord is that I do plan to host a whole bunch of office hours alongside, hopefully some other members of the board, so that we can continue those listening sessions, that conversation that I think is really happening right now in this moment. So definitely, if you have not already joined the Discord, I think that we'll have a lot of great conversations there. I know the Orange Osceola channel for their chapter has been going off a lot, and it's been amazing to see that type of discussion happen. So definitely want to emphasize, I think our statewide board's trying to really harness that communication piece right now. And definitely heard about Discord being confusing. I think that we'll try to give some more resources on tutorials of accessibility for Discord. So definitely stay in tune for that. I should be emailing some resources soon. All right. Any other questions? Any other points? I'm not seeing anything so far. But once again, just want to thank you all for being here and being on this call. This is our first statewide call. I think that we'll be having, of course, one every single month, inviting some really cool community organizations to be in this space, because this space really takes more than just this caucus, for example. To actually take back Florida, it's dependent on all of us being together in this moment. So I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of all of you, but of course, all of our amazing grassroots community partners that are on the front lines. So I'll be sending out an email shortly with some state resources, but thank you all once again, and have a good rest of your night.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Of course. All right.
Great guest. Good show. Thank you, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick.